Apparently 21 million people are using hypnotherapy. Hello. If you are a fan of the mind, the brain, and hypnosis, plus if you like stories about healing, you've come to the right place because here, Dr. Flavio explains hypnosis. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another update. So today I'm going to share with you a paper that was published in September of 2019 by the International Journal of Clinical and Experimental Hypnosis. This is a serious academic journal, peer-reviewed, on the topic, mostly on the topic of hypnosis, clinical and experimental hypnosis. This paper was published in September of 2019. That's significant because this was before the global pandemic. Now we have data indicating that since the global pandemic, more people are practicing hypnotherapy professionally, and also more people are consuming services, hypnotherapy services. So we know that the market for hypnotherapy has increased by quite a bit. However, the reason why I want to share this paper with you is because this particular paper is considered to be of a very high statistical quality because of the methodology that was used. So keep in mind, as I shared the numbers with you, numbers have only increased since the global pandemic. The paper is called the National Survey of Clinical Hypnosis Views and Experiences of the Adult Population in the United States. Okay, so I'm going to be making a few comments as I read the abstract to you. So I don't want to mislead you by thinking that the abstract says what it doesn't say, because I'll be adding my own comments to it. So to avoid any confusion, I'm going to link this article in the notes so that you can read it for yourself. But I want to read the abstract and make a few comments in terms of what it means to you and I. So the abstract says, a nationwide demographically balanced internet survey of 1,000 adults, 500 females and 500 males, mean age of 49 and a half years of age. So the people were between 18 and 88 years of age, was conducted to assess views and experiences of clinical hypnosis in the United States population. So this age range actually matches my experience at the office. I have seen people as young as 5 years of age. I don't see children as much anymore, but I used to quite a bit. And as a matter of coincidence, the oldest person I've ever seen at the office was in fact 88 years of age. So adults, typically in the range, in my case nowadays, typically in the range of 25 to 55 is most of the people that I see nowadays are in that age range. So in this survey, the mean age, 49 and a half, is a very significant number because it matches my experience as well. And it seems that as we grow in life, right, mean age 49 and a half, our attitudes, our perceptions and about ourselves, about others, and about the problems that we thought we would be able to resolve that haven't gone away. Sometimes by this age we say, okay, I need a hypnotherapist now because the problem is not being resolved by itself or through other means. So anyway, I find that to be significant, that age range. So participants were unaware when enrolling in the survey the hypnosis was the subject matter. Now this is standard research methodology. If you want to know the attitude that people have toward a particular brand of, particular brand of automobile, you would ask a bunch of other questions together in the survey that are unrelated to the subject matter in order to prevent certain biases from confounding the data. So this is standard research methodology. This has nothing to do with hypnosis or hypnotherapy. So key findings included The most reported a positive or neutral view of clinical hypnosis, with only 12.8 expressing a negative view. So this means that 87.2% of the people surveyed express a positive or a neutral attitude toward the idea of clinical hypnosis. Now, I also want to make another comment. There's a lot of research in statistical analysis. This has nothing to do with hypnosis, suggesting how many people you need to talk to in order to get an idea of what the whole population thinks. This is all part of statistical methodology. So, for instance, during electoral campaigns, they say, well, the people who are deciding to vote for candidate A, B, or C, and there's a margin of error or whatever, and the margin of error decreases the more people you interview. So, of course, if you asked everybody in the sample population the question, and they all answer, then the margin of error would be 0 because you interviewed everybody. However, that would be very costly. So if I ask one person his or her opinion, and the sample is, let's say, 1,000 people, then of course, I get one answer, but that answer is completely unreliable because this is one person's opinion. So as you can well imagine, in statistics, they have developed methods to determine how many people we have to interview such that the results we achieve are indeed representative of the entire population. So I think the adult population in the United States back in 2019 was roughly 260 or 280 million people. So the adults, right? So how many people would you have to talk to extract the opinion of the country as a whole, the adult population in the United States? In this case, 1,000 people were surveyed, and the results were statistically significant, meaning that we talked to enough people there to find out the opinion of the country as a whole. So 87.2% of the people have a neutral or a positive attitude about hypnotherapy, with only 12.8% of the people having expressed a negative attitude. But, a friend of mine, I was discussing this with a friend who's also a hypnotist, and he said to me, look, if you give a bar of gold to enough people, I'll bet you 12% of them are going to complain that it's a bit too heavy for them to carry it around. What I'm saying is, I suppose 12% of the people complain about any one thing, right? So I don't think this reflects negatively on hypnotherapy. I was actually surprised when I read the survey because I thought that more people would have expressed a negative view on hypnotherapy. But no, according to this very well done survey, high quality statistical methodology, only 12.8% expressed a negative view of clinical hypnosis. Now, 7.6% of respondents had undergone hypnosis treatment, and 63.1% reported some resulting benefit. 54.9% of individuals who had never undergone hypnosis treatment indicated that they would consider seeking such treatment. Now, this is really, really significant because 7.6% of the population in 2019 is roughly 21 million people. That's a lot of people going to hypnotherapists, right? And 63% of those who went, of those 21 million people, reported that they were benefited by the process. That's more than half. And with all due respect, I've presented data in my latest book and in some other talks that, this success rate is higher than surveys of people attending talk therapy. The kind of therapy where you only talk about problems over and over. The success rate of those kinds of therapies, according to their data, and I'll present the data to you. It's in my book, but I'll present it in another video. Their studies, their surveys, it shows that about half of the people are benefiting. So hypnotherapists are getting 63.1% of the people surveyed claiming that they're benefiting. It is higher than the success rate of conventional talk therapy. according to published data. This is not my opinion, this is published data. So 54.9% had never undergone, okay, but they would be seeking treatment. So, they would consider seeking treatment with hypnosis. And 45.6% of all respondents thought that there was moderate or strong scientific evidence supporting hypnosis as a real phenomenon. Now, this is 45.6% of the adult population of the United States in 2019 thinking that there is scientific evidence for hypnosis being a real phenomenon. This is remarkable. I would have thought those numbers were way lower because the controversial comments about hypnosis go back over 3,000 years. Is it real? Is it not? Are you only imagining? There are all kinds of theories to explain what happens in the hypnosis encounter, in the practice of hypnosis. And this goes back literally about 3,000 years. However, as of the late 1990s, brain imaging studies began to show that the hypnotic state is real and distinct. We know now from brain studies that the hypnotic state is different from imagination, it is different from your idle mental state. We know it's real. In other words, there is scientific proof, if you will, in the form of brain imaging studies and some other studies showing that the hypnotic state is an absolutely real phenomenon. But this only happened in the 90s, in the 1990s. We're talking like 30, 40 years ago. So for 45, I would have thought that a very small percentage of people would be aware of those studies. And I would have thought that most people would still believe that hypnosis is all woo-woo stuff, right? But no, to my surprise, to my pleasant surprise, 45.6% of all respondents actually believe that there is scientific validity to the phenomenon of hypnosis. I think this is remarkable. I think this is really amazing. And real phenomenon. And 77.8% identified one or more areas where they thought clinical hypnosis had substantial practical utility. So this is another topic that has been extensively studied, with all kinds of actual studies. This is not people's opinions, my opinion. There are other papers, and I'll present another paper soon to you that contains some of this data. So practical utility in the areas of like anxiety, stress, sleep, pain management, in all kinds of areas, hypnosis has been validated. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, all kinds of things. Preparation for surgery, medical procedures, dealing with the effects of chemotherapy. In all of those areas, hypnosis has been shown to be very, very effective. So again, to my pleasant surprise, 77.8% of the people surveyed, which represents the country according to this statistical sample size, actually identified one or more areas where clinical hypnosis can be quite useful. I thought that was remarkable. And 44.8% estimated themselves to be at least moderately hypnotizable. Now, other studies suggest that moderate hypnotizability or the ability to be hypnotized is much higher than 44.8%, but this is the person's belief. I believe I can be hypnotized. I don't believe I can. What people believe or don't believe, unless they have been to a competent hypnotherapist, doesn't quite match the data. The percentage is higher. But still, almost half of the people surveyed believe that they're at least moderately hypnotizable. So I think that this particular survey is absolutely remarkable. I think it shows that we're growing up as a nation, and it took 3,000 years for science to actually be able to show that the hypnotic state is real. And now, every year, every day, more and more studies are coming out. In my book, I present another paper from another journal. It is called a bibliometric study, where they count how many papers are published every year on the topic of hypnosis or hypnotherapy in the medical journals, in the scientific literature. And what's really interesting is that since the mid to late 90s, when they were able to show that hypnosis is real, the number of papers published on hypnosis has increased steadily at an annual rate of 8.5%. So there are thousands of papers published now on hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and every year more and more papers are published. Now, every time you publish a paper like this, it costs a ton of money, right? Because these studies are not cheap. Depending on the kind of studies you do, they're not cheap. They're very, very expensive. And the process of publishing papers in the scientific literature is quite tedious. It's a process, right? So the fact that more and more papers, 8.5% increasing the number of papers published year after year since the mid-90s, that fact alone is extraordinarily significant. It means that more people are paying attention to the topic of hypnosis, and more people are engaging with hypnotherapists, such that more studies are required, more studies are needed, more studies are called for, which I think is awesome. And we can all win as a result of this. We can all benefit from work with clinical hypnosis, all of us. It is not just to adjust weight or, it's a bunch of other things, internal changes that we can accomplish with hypnosis that we really couldn't with other methodologies. In other words, talking about something at a cognitive level alone will never reach the level of the mind needed to make certain kinds of changes. There are topics in addiction, there are topics in all kinds of areas where you can talk and talk and talk, and the person will tell you, I understand everything, but I still have the problem. And so more research is needed, of course. Success is not 100%, but you tell me the one thing you know where the success is 100%. Antibiotics are not 100% effective. No medication is, no procedure is, nothing is. So it's part of life, and that's okay. But hypnotherapists are doing well, despite the fact that there's no standard consensus on training, licensure. It's a fascinating topic, the topic of hypnotherapy, from the perspective of the profession, because unlike the acupuncturists or the chiropractors, the profession never quite consolidated into a licensed profession. So people are self-taught, and it takes a ton of motivation to develop the skills that are necessary to become a great hypnotherapist. So if a person persists, and they've been doing this for more than 10 years, which is what Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point where you become an expert. If a person has been doing this for 10 years and they persisted, they survived economically, professionally, that person is typically good, because it isn't easy to survive. It's not like we can rely on insurance payments. It's not like we get a salary from a hospital. More and more people are, but it's still not, the majority of these people practicing hypnosis are independent practitioners having to compete with people's available discretionary money, income, right? It's tough. And yet the profession is only growing year after year. We know this from surveys within the professional circles. We know this from bibliometric studies showing that more studies are being published. We know this from every single angle. So listen, it is awesome talking to you. Go ahead, like and subscribe so that we can talk soon, and you will never miss the next update coming up soon.